This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
China issued a second batch of 2023 crude oil import quotas, according to two sources with knowledge of the matter and documents reviewed by Reuters on Monday, raising the total for this year by 20% compared to the same time last year. According to the document from the Ministry of Commerce, 44 companies, mostly independent refiners, were given 111.82 million tons in import quotas in this round. Combined with the 20 million tons in 2023 quotas granted to 21 refineries in October, that takes the total for this year to 131.82 million tons, up from the 109.03 million tons issued in the first batch for 2022. The second batch of quotas for 2022 was released in June last year.
Oil prices were little changed on Tuesday, giving up some of the gains from the previous session, as traders awaited clarity on the Federal Reserve's plans for rate hikes to gauge the impact on the economy and fuel demand. Fed policymakers say fresh inflation data out later this week will help them decide whether they can slow the pace of interest rate hikes at their upcoming meeting, to just a quarter-point increase instead of the larger jumps they used for most of 2022. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell will make a speech later in the day at a central bank conference that could offer some signals on the Fed's plan.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
Britain announced plans on Monday to scale back energy subsidies for businesses for the next financial year by about 85% to £5.5 billion, $6.7 billion, after the government described the current level of support as unsustainably expensive. The current 6-month programme of energy support that will expire at the end of March was predicted to cost £18.4 billion when the government's budget watchdog published forecasts in November. My top priority is tackling the rising cost of living, something that both families and businesses are struggling with, Finance Minister Jeremy Hunt said in a statement. That means taking difficult decisions to bring down inflation while giving as much support to families and business as we are able.
Norway's oil output is expected to rise by 6.9% this year as the huge Johan Sverdrup field ramps up production, while gas volumes are predicted to remain unchanged near record highs, the Norwegian Petroleum Directorate, NPD, said on Monday. Production of crude oil and other petroleum liquids such as condensate is likely to increase to 2.02 million barrels per day, BPD, in 2023 from 1.89 million last year, NPD's forecasts show. Norway last year overtook Russia as Europe's biggest gas supplier, with Equinor the top exporter, after Russia's Gazprom cut off much of the gas on which Europe previously depended. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. Chile, the world's top copper producer, saw exports of the red metal reach $4.28 billion in December, down 13.2% from a year earlier, the central bank said on Monday. The country posted a trade surplus of $1.85 billion in the month, up from a $417 million surplus in December 2021.
Asian shares fell on Tuesday following hawkish comments from two U.S. Federal Reserve officials overnight, with investors turning cautious ahead of key inflation data, while China's reopening after COVID-19 restrictions pushed commodities higher. MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan was down 0.02% in early trade. The main theme overnight was cautiousness in the equity space as stocks paired gains after hawkish comments from two Fed officials. Raphael Bostic and Mary Daly said the Fed would likely hike interest rates to above 5% and hold them there for some time, Commerzbank said in a client note.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural.
Chicago soybean futures lost more ground on Tuesday, with a lack of demand for U.S. supplies weighing on the market, although losses were limited by dry weather curbing yields in key supplier Argentina. Wheat fell for a third consecutive session while corn slid. U.S. soybean export inspections were a bit lower than expected, said one Singapore-based trader. Going forward, there will be more competition for U.S. exports as Brazil starts harvesting. That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.